Welcome to another edition of Nutmeg Chatter presents the Claus Corner. My guest today is an author, improv artist, actor, and stand-up comedian. Please welcome to the show the extremely talented Jack Levine. Jack, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here. So, as I mentioned in the intro, you're an author, stand-up comedian, and improv artist. Quite the Renaissance man, I might say. What inspires you?
I wanted to do something in retirement. I'd been a chief financial officer, worked till I was 72 years old. I'm now almost 76, and was trying to think of what was I going to do when I grow up. So I took on writing books and improv and stand-up and acting.
Wait, you did not do any of this before retirement?
No,
you just started. What was first?
The first thing I did was write a book. I was just going to write something and then hit delete. But a cousin of mine, who has actually published 2 books, suggested I write a memoir so I could give it to my grandchildren, and I have 6 of them. And so I wrote that, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Got that done, and actually got published and got some pretty good reviews on that. The next thing I did, I got into improv. I thought that
Wait, let's go back to the book for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I want to start with that. So you wrote a memoir.
Yeah.
And you had it self-published, or do you have a publisher?
I was self-publishing.
Okay, so you can find it on Amazon.
Right. You can find it on Amazon, and it's titled Laughing Out Loud, a Memoir by Jack B. Levine.
All right.
And I had a lot of fun with that. And I tell stories which are, to me, the type of thing that people would term heartwarming, if you will. And then some of the things I think are funny because I make fun of myself, essentially.
I love self-deprecating humor.
Well, I actually was very, very shy when I was right through high school. And it only came out to blossom, if you will, when I got to college. It took a lot of effort. Now I'm very much the extrovert, but it was a big change.
So most of this was as a challenge, not only because you were retired and you're looking for something to do, but also to challenge yourself, to push yourself even further.
Right.
And so writing the book, I'm always fascinated by this, the process. So the memoir obviously is your life story.
Right.
Give me one heartwarming story that I think my audience would enjoy. Heartwarming. That would make them want to buy this book.
Well, I think there's so many different parts of it. For example, a number of people have read it and given me some feedback. One person said my very first chapter is about my father, and they said it resonated with them because it made them think about their father and so forth and so on. I have I talk about a lot of the funny things that happened to me. I've had different experiences being in the Army, having a career in finance. I've been in politics, and I've done a number of different things.
Wait, let's go back to that now.
Yeah.
What did you do in politics?
Oh, well, I was 25 years. I was elected. Was on the Board of Education, Region 16, in Beacon Falls. I was selectman, town treasurer. I was chairman of the Board of Finance. So I ran a number of times. And won, luckily.
And all of this you can find in your book, Laughing Out Loud.
Oh, yeah, different things. But I talk about, for example, in the politics, one of the times I actually ran for state senator. I lost by a lot of votes, but they wanted somebody to run in the district, and the incumbent was very popular. But anyway, I did run, and it was kind of interesting. But one of the things that happened that a town chairman decided to help me, laugh, and stole one of the signs of the person I was running against. And he and his daughter carried the sign. It was one of the big signs, 6 foot by 8 foot, carried it down the street right past the police commissioner, who was very good friends with the politician. This was Gary Hale, very nice guy, and did a very good job when he was in. And anyway, not only took the sign, put it into down the street past the police chief. I said commissioner, police chief. He put it in the garage. And so the police chief calls other policemen. They go in the garage and there's the evidence and so forth and so on. It ended up being front page news for 2 days on the New Haven Register. And it was broadcast as the first story on Channel 8 and Channel 3.
What year was this?
This was 19, I think it was 88. 1988.
So breaking news here on Nutmeg Chatter presents the Claus Corner. Politicians are not honest? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, actually, the best compliment I ever got as a politician was I'm a very bad politician.
Too honest?
I took that because I actually told the truth and meant what I said and said what I did.
How dare you?
I know.
I'd never vote for you. That, of course, is sarcasm.
But politics is a chance to help people and do things. And I always try to do things nice. I have to say that my first thing in politics, as I think about it now, is I got elected to the Region 16 Board of Education. So my very first meeting, we're going through the minutes the meeting, and they get to a time when they had a potato peeler. Now, they never used it because now they were buying boxes of potatoes that I guess you add water or whatever you do to it. So this particular church in Beacon Falls would rent it, and they wanted to buy it, and then we're going to buy it for $50. So this was a pretty straightforward thing, except for Jack Levine raises his hand and says, "Well, did we give other churches an opportunity to get it? The Boy Scouts." Anyway, it was discussed for 45 minutes.
Let me guess.
And the reporter was here. Of course, first time I met him, he was really amused by it, and it had some headline like "Board slips on potato peeler."
Inquiring minds want to know. But let me guess. In school, were you ever a high school or hall school monitor?
No, I was very very shy. Right up until I got to college. Then I got to be president of my dorm, and I don't know. Things changed a lot.
Obviously, and personally, I think it's for the better, because I did read 2 of your books so far. I want to get the last one, and I want to talk about the one that was just released.
Yeah.
Now, that's a fictional book. Is that correct?
Right. The first book, obviously, memoirs, is nonfiction. The second book, premier, I should say, for the performing arts. That was about, since retirement, tales of getting involved in acting and improv and stand-up and personal storytelling. And I give some, I think, funny anecdotes of what happened. And I hope people will enjoy that. I certainly got a lot of good feedback from that one.
You definitely have an interesting life, so I cannot picture anybody being bored reading this.
Well, I don't get bored, but I'm having a lot of fun, that's for sure.
I'm waiting for the movie.
The third book, my cousin who got me writing said that he preferred to have fiction. That's what he liked as opposed to nonfiction. So he kind of challenged me to write a book of fiction, and I had never done that. So I started to write short stories, and I spent a lot of time doing it, and I actually ended up with 9 stories. But one of the stories got to be over 100 pages long. So what I've done is I put eight stories in this Tales of Birth and Madness. 4 of them are humorous, and 4 of them are drama type things, serious stories.
Do you have a favorite genre to write?
No, I think I sort of keep it into the present day, sort of like I don't do a Western, I don't anything like that. It's more. I don't know what the genre would be called for what I do. Realistic fiction or whatever.
Well, they always say write what you know. So a lot of these stories, are they based on your actual events from your real life? Like maybe embellished a little bit?
Yes, not all of them, no. Some of them do touch on an idea. For example, I have a story about a character that goes on a camping trip. And, of course, lots of things happen on the camping trip, which I think are amusing. In other words, it's fictional. But I did go on a camping trip one time, and some of these things did happen. Not all of them. I did embellish them. Well, in one of the in that particular story, a person that read it that I know very well said to me, "Well, this particular aspect, we actually found a plane in this mountain that we climbed, a very small plane that had crashed, and I actually included it in the fiction book." And she said to me, "Well, that's not realistic." And that was one of the things that was realistic. But, I just came up with the ideas, and then I wrote it and enjoyed doing it.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about your process. So Nutmeg Chatter presents the Claw's Corner. We'll be back with my guest, author, improv artist, actor, and stand-up comedian, Jack Levine, right after this. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter presents the Claw's Corner. I am speaking with author, improv artist, actor, and stand-up comedian Jack Levine. Jack, thanks for sticking around.
Oh, great. Yes.
So, we were talking about your latest novel. It's 8 or 9 stories.
Yeah, 8 or 9 stories. I should have finished it. The 9th story that I had written, I only included 8 stories. The 9th story actually had gone over 100 pages. I had about 150 pages. So What I did is I'm turning that into a novel, which will be coming out in the next month or two.
All right. So you said at first you were not comfortable writing fiction. So here's the question I have for you, is because I find this interesting. What is your process from the thought in your head to the printed book? Like, do you come up with an idea and then you just put it on the paper, and do you write knowing what you're going to write, or do you just sit down and say, you know what, from 2 to 4, I'm going to write, and I'm just going to see what happens?
Well, it varies a little bit. Every day, thinking of things, whether comedy for a stand-up comedy routine or writing or whatever it might be. And I have a laptop, of course, and if I have an idea, I sit down and write. I have literally been at my laptop, except to take a break, from 6 a.m. in the morning to several times. It was after 1 a.m. in the morning, and my wife said, "Aren't you going to bed?" And other times I wouldn't write anything because nothing was flowing. So I don't force myself to do it. It's more get an idea. I usually don't know what the end's going to be in the middle. I have an idea of a direction. It's kind of like saying, okay, we live in Connecticut, and I'm going to go north, as opposed to saying I'm going to go to Maine. I start developing ideas. I write, and then usually I'm writing it again and again. I might write something several times before I actually get to where I want it to be. So, I mean, the fiction, it was the first time I've done that. For the novel, or as I got to maybe the 7th and 8th story, I got to be a little more organized in terms of more of an outline of how I was going. But the original ones were more improv, if you will, until I knew where I wanted to be.
Now, do you base your characters on real people?
Not really. It might have something of a particular person and several people. No, I haven't done that for the fiction. I might use parts from somebody, but it won't be all of one person.
Well, it's funny. I bring that up because I met John Grisham.
Yeah.
He was doing a book signing, and he said that when he writes characters, he's always worried because it's always based on somebody. And he writes a lot of attorney novels because he was an attorney. So he wrote this character, and he was so worried of coming back home and having the guy just say, "Well, I can't believe you wrote this." So he went back home, and the guy said, "Hey, man, I want to thank you. I love that. That's all about me." And the guy was the biggest jerk in the novel. That's why he was so worried. But the guy loved his 12 seconds of fame, and he was so happy that he included him in the novel. So I was wondering if people came up to you and said, "Hey, thanks for writing about me."
Actually, I try to create characters that are different as much as possible from perhaps somebody in particular. But I actually not only was writing these stories, fiction stories, for the sake of writing them, I also thought and do believe that it helps in acting. Because as you know, as an actor, you get different characters to play, and you have to get to understand what the backstory is of that character. So by creating a character that's different than what I normally do, then I have to think about what would they say, what would they do, how would they do it, and everybody is, I hate to use the expression like an onion, but everybody has layers. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is totally bad. So you just have to see that. And I enjoy observing and getting to know people. And part of that is I use it in my humor, stand-up comedy.
Well, you know what? That was a perfect segue for my next question. Moving on from books, you also did improv comedy.
Right. And
do you remember your first time on stage?
Oh, sure. Actually, I took two. I took intro to improv twice because I wasn't too sure about being good. Then I went to the first level. There's 4 levels with various courses in each level. I go to CT Comedy Theater in Hartford, which, by the way, if anybody wants to go and do some improv shows and learn about it, that's a great place to go. So the first level that I took, the instructor said, "Jack, you're boring." And the problem was I would stop and think. I would try to be funny. I would try to anticipate what was being said. And I wasn't being free and easy and just going with the flow. And that is, you know.
Yeah, I do.
You have to listen to your partner, and you have to just go with it and not try to be funny, just let the situation be funny. And so by the second level, I was considered crazy funny, and I had a lot of fun. People liked what I did. I liked it a lot. But everything is different characters because you in improv you're told something. You could act like a watermelon, whatever that means, or act like a whatever, and you do it, and it's a lot of fun. But from that, I got to learn about stage presence, about voice projection, about being in the moment. A lot of people, if they're not talking and not doing the acting, they think that they should just be standing there. You need to be in the scene. You need to be always, whether you're smiling or frowning or whatever, you need to have that reaction.
Yeah, well, I was in improv classes as well.
Yeah.
I was part of a group, and I learned right away, like you said, don't try and be funny. Just think of the first thing that pops out of your mouth.
Exactly.
Just say it and go from there. And it may not be funny from what you said, but somebody else can take that word or that thought, and they can make it funny. Then you can expound upon that. So, yeah, I did the same thing with you, and I did all those same exercises. And you made a great point about if you're not saying anything, sometimes body movements speak volumes. They can say so much more than what you can say out of your mouth.
Right.
So somebody's frowning, somebody's like making an angry face, that could lead like, hey, what are you so angry for? And that could lead into a whole other skit. So I had different class than you, but I enjoyed it very much, and I learned a lot too from that.
You could people could get to understand this maybe a little. If the next time you're at, let's say, a party or dinner, and you have several people over, your family or friends, observe the people who are not talking, and they're just not standing there like a statue.
Yeah,
they're reacting in some way. Maybe they're not even listening to you; they're just talking on the side to somebody else. You watch people's reactions, and that's what you want to try to create when you're acting. And in improv, you just go with it. It's a lot of fun.
Which, we're going to talk about this after the break. It led to you doing stand-up comedy. I want to hear all about that right after this. So Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. We'll be back with my guest, author, improv artist, actor, and stand-up comedian, Jack Levine, right after this. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter presents the Claws Corner. I am speaking with author, improv artist, actor, and stand-up comedian, Mr. Jack Levine, the Renaissance man himself. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
All right, so we talked about writing, we talked about improv, and that brings you to stand-up comedy. Tell me how you first got started with that.
Well, I've always been fascinated by people that would stand up on stage, whether they're acting or stand-up or whatever. And I just thought it would be fun to try it. And I decided that I was just going to do it once. And I signed up for a class at CT Comedy Theater by Rob Santos, who's a professional comedian. You know him.
Mutual
Rich,
friend.
Yes, we're all friends with him. And he's outstanding. And in his class, he talked about finding things that mean something to you and then to talk about it, and you find it funny and so forth and so on. So my intention was just to be on once, and I got on one of the class shares that the class does, and got some laughs, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and then I've done it 6 times. I stopped doing it only temporarily because I've been in 3 shows as an actor, and I'm in 4th show, which would be 12 Angry Jurors, and into rehearsals now with that. But after that, I'll do stand-up. Of course, I'm going to do stand-up, as you know, on March 3rd at the Palace Theater.
Oh, yes. Well, I want to talk about all that, but I want to go back to comedy. What is the most important thing that you took from Rob in order to get your act to be funny?
Well, I think there's just a number of things. You need to know that when you're going to be funny, you have to be all in. You never know if people are going to laugh. So if you're going to worry about it, you're not going to be able to do it. So think about what you want to talk about. Think about how you think it's funny. And then I think the biggest thing is in your delivery, your timing, your facial expressions. I worked a lot on that. So I could take something that might be okay, and you kind of work it with the crowd, and hopefully you're funny. If you're not funny, you're not funny. I do it for fun, and I hope people will like it, but you never know, and you can't predict for sure what's going to happen.
Well, I've seen so many people be discouraged by one show. And I said, you know what, I did stand-up comedy for a while, and I would do 4 or 5 shows a week. New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I would do the same set every single time. Every single time I would get 4 or 5 different reactions. So you can't say, well, this joke is horrible. What I used to always tell people is like, if you think it's funny, stick with it and let the audience find you. Don't try and find what's funny for the audience, because if you think it's funny, you can make it funny. Perfect example, and he's my all-time favorite comedian, is George Carlin.
Yeah.
If you see his jokes on paper, it's like a political essay. But when you see him on stage reciting that with his faces and his mannerisms, it's hilarious.
It's a delivery, right.
But I also have a theory, and I think this would be a great idea for a TV show. I think, established comedians get a laugh no matter what. Like if Dave Chappelle walked up doing your jokes, people would think it's hilarious. But if you went on stage doing his jokes and nobody knew it was his jokes, they'd be like, oh, look at this guy, he's an amateur. So I think a great reality show would be to take professional comedians, team them up with an amateur. And like I said, you do the professional jokes just like they wanted it done, just like they would do it, and they do your jokes. And I want to see them get all the laughs and then saying, oh, Jack Levine, he's never going to make it. He's not funny at all, even though you're doing classic material by a classic and
I don't do
legendary comedian.
I don't do jokes. I do stories. Rob said that I reminded him of Bob Newhart.
I love Bob Newhart.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm Bob Newhart, but I mean, he obviously was a superstar. But that's the type of stuff I do. I tell stories and hopefully show the humor within that particular situation and have fun with the audience. I think a lot of it is energy, enthusiasm. You got to like what you're saying. If you just say, well, I want to tell you a joke, or put everybody to sleep, which could be a good thing, I guess, if they're tired.
Where can people find you? Where can people find you be funny?
Okay. I'm going to be at the Palace Theater in Waterbury on March 3rd. It's a Tuesday, and I'm in the second act series. And tickets.
And what's that?
That is one person a month from September to June. Give a performance on their second act. What have they done different from earlier in their life? How have they changed? And I know you have a show in June, and you have a tremendous second act to talk about.
Well, I love their tagline, second act. The first half was only the rehearsal.
Exactly. So if people were interested, they can go to the Palace Theater online or call the box office. It's Palace Theater in Waterbury, and ask for tickets to the March 3rd show with Jack Levine. And we'll have comedy, we'll have some improv, we'll have some sketches. It's going to be a lot of fun. Some other things that I'm planning on doing.
Boy, after hearing this, I really have to step up my game then, because he's doing it March 3rd. I'm going to be there June 23rd. So I cannot wait to see it.
Thank you.
Very much looking forward to it. But before we go, so we're almost wrapping up, but you also are an actor, and you said you're going to be in, 12 Angry Men?
Well, the show the play was originally called 12 Angry Men, but it's called 12 Angry Jurors because half of the actors are going to be women, and they've done it. They've actually done 12 Angry Women. It's something the playwrights they made some changes. I'm going to be juror number 2.
Which one was that in the movie?
I don't know the name. I can't remember the name of the actor, but it's supposed to be a person that's more reserved.
Okay.
Little shy, little different. A different character than I've played before. The director said it would be challenging. I don't have as many lines as some, the main stars. I'm kind of in the middle, but there's lines throughout the whole play, and it's 3 acts, but you're on stage all the time.
Well, that's great. Plus, it doesn't even matter if you don't have any lines, because that's getting your foot in the door, and then the director's going to see that he likes you, and then I'm sure the next play.
Well, I have a fair number of lines. It's I just don't have. I'm not. There's 4 characters that are the top characters.
Your name's not in the marquee, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, the first time I got put in a cast, I said to the director, I hope you're giving me a small role. He says, well, you're not going to be the lead.
Okay, well, talk about constructive criticism.
Yeah, acting's fun, though. It's very great. I hope people could come, and it will be the Cheshire Community Theater, and it'll be April 24th, 25th, and 26th at New Hall Theater in Cheshire. And tickets probably will go on sale, I'd say probably in March.
Well, you know what? I think you brought up the most important word of the night, and that is fun. No matter what you're doing, improv, stand-up comedy, acting, writing, if you're not having fun, don't even bother doing it.
Right.
Jack, I really want to thank you for being on the show.
Great.
Please come back, because we basically just scratched the surface. There's so much more to talk about with you. So
I'd
love to have you back on the show. And that wraps up another episode of Nutmeg Chatter Presents The Claw's Corner. I want to thank the Renaissance man himself, Mr. Jack Levine, for being such a great guest. Please, like I said before, come back anytime. I would also like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in every week. Enjoy your day, everyone.